What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Rush Cyberfunk, because this is pretty much my dream project. Way back in the day, when I was a little kid, I was completely obsessed with the Dreamcast. I was constantly trying to play literally every game for the system. Sports stuff, big RPGs, intergalactic adventures, but one of the very best games was Jet Grind Radio, a cel-shaded game with a completely killer soundtrack and some really great moves to it. But after we got that first game, we did get a very good follow-up called Jet Set Radio Future, but then the franchise just vanished. Despite the fact that people knew that this is such an interesting Sega gem, it felt like Sega themselves were never going to go back to this fantastic universe. Well, some indie developers decided to just straight up make the next Jet Set Radio, and it's perfect. This has more things to write on, better tricks, bigger maps, bigger soundtrack. I mean, it's just Jet Set bigger future, and I absolutely just have to love that. But this game isn't without some very glaring flaws. In an effort to try and imitate a 20-year-old game, there is some aspects of this that don't quite work. Let's talk. Hi, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So first and foremost, what is Rush Cyberfunk and how does it play? So we're playing as a guy who's essentially like a freedom fighter, a guy that likes to try and take over the town, spread graffiti, and be the coolest cool kid in Cool City. Now, the way they're doing this is by skating around and tagging stuff, establishing their turf, pushing out the other gangs. But during the course of this turf war, we accidentally get decapitated. You know what? It happens. So you suddenly wake up and they've given you a robot head. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, it doesn't work like that. If you get a robot head, you're not the same person. Well, that's right. In fact, what we're doing here is we're playing as a robot called Red, who's searching for his missing head so that our original character, Fox, can kind of come back to life. So it's a little bit of a mystery, and in order to get information, we're trying to muscle in on all the other skate gangs, tagging their graffiti, spreading our art, and hopefully showing them that we're boss and we need to get a little bit ahead. Now, what this really means is that you're basically going through 5 different big territories, from shopping malls to construction rigs on islands to just cool cityscapes that are based on like Shibuya Terminal in Japan. This game is just so gorgeous, but I have to say, I'm actually extra impressed as to how good these maps feel. Back in Jet Grind Radio and Jet Set Radio Future, there was definitely some problems with the maps feeling overly condensed. It was probably just the hardware at the time, but it never really had that opened up, breathable feeling to the grinding and to the tricks and to the exploration. This game, funk, is just so funky. The fact that you can actually ride a skateboard, you can ride skates, you can actually use your jetpack to dash around, you can use a freaking bike to do all sorts of cool bike tricks. This game is just so playable. But while you're exploring it, you definitely go piece by piece. Now, I'm going to talk about this in the positive and the negative. The game is broken down into these territories, and each time you have a specific thing you're trying to do. Usually at the start, it's just tag some stuff, paint some stuff, get some attention. But once you actually up your street cred is when the specific missions begin. Times where you're trying to challenge somebody to a trick attack or follow the leader, where you're trying to do the craziest zigzag lines through these really big jungle gym style cities. I like when this game works, but the problem is that 80% of the time, it feels very freeform. You get a choice as to which stuff you want to tag, where you want to go, what you want to do, what kind of vehicle you want to be riding on, whether it is that skateboard or those roller skates, and they all have very different tricks. My issue is that for some reason, they decided to put cops everywhere. when you're playing this game by tagging stuff, which is obviously the entire gameplay loop, it pisses off the local police, and the deeper into the game you go, the more aggressive they become until they start just shooting you on sight. Now, for the most part, they're pretty easy to dodge, but there are some like mandatory police boss battles where they have like mech suits and jetpacks. Now, it's not the worst thing ever. It's that they make you do it again and again. And it sucks when I'm enjoying actually trying to puzzle out. All right, do I jump to this awning? And then I'll ramp jump and boost and grind on this billboard to get to this upper platform and tag that. It feels good when you're just kind of figuring out how to paint. And then suddenly there's like 25 cops literally sniping you. And it's like, okay. It's not that it's a bad mechanic. It just feels like something that's maybe overtuned. Like, why in the world are there like 800 cops literally shooting me on rollerblades? I'm just trying to vibe, bro. But going back to the positives, by far the part of this game that I really just relished because it feels so surprisingly novel is the times where it feels kind of like Tony Hawk. Now, what I mean by that is if you've ever played Tony Hawk, obviously there's different styles of trick. There's grind tricks, there's ramp trips, there's like times where you jump off something like a little tiny gap and then do a little flip. The tricks in this give you points, which give you extra boost. But what I really enjoyed the most is that a lot of the boss fights, after you completely take over a gang's territory, they challenge you to a score attack battle. It's all of their crew versus all of your crew just going insane in like a mall or a playground or some big construction area. And it feels so good because the rest of the game, you're just tagging and enjoying like kind of the cool ambience and great art. It's nice that suddenly it like unlocks this extra part of the brain where you're having to worry about combos and chains. And all right, how can I manual on my skateboard and get over to that next bar before losing my balance? This game just feels so good. The jump packs, the dancing, I mean, it has such a cool old school charm that we just don't see. As a fan of Jet Set Radio, it's insane to me how much they nailed this. I think this is all completely new people. I think maybe they got a couple people from the old games, but this is just directed by some newcomer. This is some like young blood talent that made this game. In fact, I read that a lot of the dancing in this game, which I find to be very charming because back in the original games, whenever you're standing there idle, people would slowly dance to the amazing soundtrack. They do that here. The dancing in this is the director of the game. He's an actual break dancer and he mocapped stuff himself. That is so freaking cool to me. That shows a level of effort and passion that I feel like indie games capture so well. But the last thing I have to say, which is by far the best, the soundtrack. They brought back the composer from Jet Set Radio. And it's brilliant. Anybody who's ever heard the Jet Set Radio Future soundtrack, it is literally all bangers. It's just impossibly good track, back to back to back. And somehow this band has come back 2 decades later. And ladies and gentlemen, he's still got the magic. I was absolutely, when I first turned it on, I was kind of like, okay, a couple of these early tracks, whatever. I'm not even the biggest music guy. This is just such a great soundtrack. I want to buy the vinyl of it. If they end up releasing it, like game developer dudes, if Team Reptile, if y'all release a vinyl, I'm going to buy that. Day one. I want to freaking jam out on this. I want to put this down at parties so we can all do our jet set dances. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm glad this isn't a full-priced game. It's cool that it's like $40. I feel like hopefully that gets more people to give it a shot. It's about 8 hours to completely beat the game, about 12 hours if you want to try and track down all the tags, but even still, this has been such a delightful time. It's got some rough edges, it's got some pacing issues, it's got times where there's like a platform you need to get to progress the story and it doesn't put a beacon on it, so you spend like 20 minutes wandering in circles. It has those old school problems at times, but it's exactly what I, as a Jet Set fan, would want. This is Jet Set Radio Future 3, and I can't believe that they actually got the vibe perfect. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Bomb Rush Cyberfunk an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. And also, please be open-minded about this game. Man, I beat this in like 2 sittings, and it was truly freaking delightful. Give it a shot. I hope this game comes to like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus at some point, because really, it's one of those games that I hope people just give it a shot. If you even play the first hour, you're going to be hooked. Trust me. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.